Mr. Sinha, I'd really like to ask you, what role do you see for young leaders in building a sustainable future, especially given that they are the ones who are inheriting the planet that we are leaving to them, and this impacts them the most?
So, Shagun, you are a young person, and all of you have to be the change you want to see. As Gandhiji said, you have to be the change you want to see. If you're going to stick your head in the sand, or better said, if you're going to spend all your time on Instagram doing reels or on Facebook, chatting with friends or going to the coffee shop and ignoring what's happening in the future, your life, your future, your family, all of them will be profoundly and negatively affected by what's happening in climate change. And there are many simple things all of us can do. And of course, I do them as well. One, we have to all try and lead a frugal vegan lifestyle by and large. So the smaller our ecological footprint, the better off we are, number one. Number two, we have to be engaged on these issues. So watching, Instagram reels is not really giving you the information that you need. And so again, as I said, I applaud the people that are watching this podcast because this is not something that is irrelevant to your future. It's extremely relevant and extremely important for your future. And once you are aware of these things, then you can also take appropriate action. Now, what are the kinds of actions you can take apart from just lifestyle changes? Number one, as citizens of this country and citizens of the planet, you can vote your interests. So decide who are the people who will help you with air pollution. Decide who are the people who will help you with respect to net zero. Decide who are the people who understand how economic growth has to be sustainable. So vote correctly. Think about that and vote appropriately. Number two, if you are an entrepreneur or you're a startup or if you're working for a large company, there are many, many things that you can do to accelerate the usage of green technologies. So be mindful of that and be responsible and really push those causes. And then finally, for those of you that do understand how important these issues are, you have to be green ambassadors. You have to be able to tell your friends, you're out in a coffee shop, you're at a restaurant, you're having a good time. Do talk about these issues because these are very, very important. If you're talking about, how India and Australia are doing in the test match in the GABA right now, you should equally be talking about what's happening to your future and whether that future can be greener or not.
I absolutely agree. I mean, till we are speaking more about it, till we prioritize it in our minds, in our day to day conversations, it will not become a national priority. And I think absolutely right in saying that. Mr. Sinha, we ask one question to every single guest who comes on this podcast. So I would like to ask you that question as well. If you could change one thing about how we live today to ensure a better planet tomorrow, what would it be?
The most important thing that we can do is to make people aware and energized about how important the green future is. Once people understand, things will begin to happen. But the worst thing is indifference and ignorance. It's all a function of the public being mobilized, the public being aware of this set of issues. If they are mobilized and aware, change will automatically happen. And I say this as somebody who spent many years in public life. We respond to what people want. And so people have to want this.
Mrs. Sinha, I'm going to ask you another question, and this is just from me. Um, do we have time till 2070? I mean, at the rate at which things are changing and the flash floods and the snow in places that have never had snow and the drought in places that have never had drought, do we have enough? Do we have that much time?
We don't have much time in terms of preserving what we have right now. So it's inevitable that whatever we have right now is going to change. It is going to get warmer. We are going to have more flash floods, more cloud bursts, more cyclones. Mumbai is going to have more cyclones than it has ever had before. We will have coastal flooding. That is inevitable. And I say this because I'm a scientist and an engineer by training. So I know what the physics are. The physics are we've already gone from 220 parts per million of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere to potentially, going above 550. We are already at 430, 440 right now. So before we are able to get to net zero, we are going to end up with 550 parts per million of greenhouse gases, of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now remember, this was when pre-industrialization we were at 200. Now unless we start sucking this carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, this blanket has been created around the planet. No matter what we do right now, we are going to have to deal with the fact that the world is going to be 3 degrees warmer, pretty much 2 to 3 degrees warmer. So it is definitely going to affect us. Now, beyond 2 to 3 degrees centigrade, if we don't stop now, if we don't change our lifestyles, if we don't move away from fossil fuels, the impact is going to be absolutely disastrous. What if the Antarctic melts? What if the Arctic melts? What if the permafrost in the Siberian tundra actually completely melts as well and releases even more methane into the atmosphere? I mean, these tipping points, as they're called, these climate tipping points, might also get triggered. And when they get triggered, if the Arctic or the Antarctic melts, sea levels are going to rise dramatically. And if they rise dramatically by 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meters, already it's predicted somewhere between 0.5 to 1 meters. But what if they rise by 2 or 3 meters? Most coastal cities are going to get flooded. Mumbai, Kochi, Calcutta, all of these cities will become unlivable. So we do have time to prevent the worst impacts of climate change. Some is bound to happen now, and we have to get ready for that. But unless we change now, immediately, we are going to start to see very disastrous effects. But the good news is the technologies are there now, the policies are there now. It's the people. The people have to change their behavior. People have to, start to think differently about how they live their lives and their preference for petrol versus electric.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. That has been a very enlightening conversation. And I also want to thank you for making sure that it's not all doom and gloom, because almost at the end of everything that we have spoken, you have said the good news is, which means that there is hope for the future and there are actionable steps that we can all take towards reversing some of the damage that has already been caused. So thank you so much for also always showing us the more positive picture and what we need to do and the work that needs to be done.
So Shagun, people don't like to hear doom and gloom.
Right.
So let's not focus on the doom and gloom. Let's focus on the boom, as I say, the green boom that's coming, right? And that's why my big slogan, and if there's one thing you and your listeners should take away from this discussion, is net zero is massively net positive. So let's get on with it. Net zero is massively net positive. We must make it happen.
We heard you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for joining us. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Stars on Sustainability, a podcast series from Earth Inherited. If you have enjoyed this conversation, please stay with us for more episodes where we bring you thought leaders, change makers, and innovators shaping a better, greener world. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going and take those small, meaningful steps towards sustainability together. See you soon, and thank you very much.